Okay, this video is going to continue from my previous technique talk, and I was talking about three-dimensional forms and three-dimensional thinking. So like I showed in that previous video, it's really useful to think in three views. So in this case, I've sketched out a simple kind of cartoon comic booky head. I've done it on purpose with very thick lines, so I'm just dealing with the simple basic forms. I'm not getting into lots of noodly details. And what I did is, as in that other video, I drew it consistently. So in other words, you can see that things line up. The dimensions line up. Things are on the same line. And I did it on this graph paper. So the eyes are at the same level, nose and so forth. So the point of that is that everything is consistent to each other. The three drawings are consistent to each other. And that's important because when you do the next step, which I'm going to show how to project a three-quarter view drawing, or you can really project any angle you want. If you don't have your three views consistent to each other, then of course it's going to throw everything off. So that the first step is, and I showed this in the other video, is constructing these three views. Okay, so that's point one. Sorry, the voice is shot tonight. I don't know why. Now what I've done here is, same thing. I printed it out, that same drawing, but I just cut them out, which is kind of fun. So now I got my little cutouts. Let's call them Fred. So I got front-facing Fred, side-facing Fred, and I got top-view Fred, Fred head. So you can do lots of fun stuff with this. And I showed in the other video one angle, but here I'm going to do, we don't need front-facing Fred, so goodbye, Fred. We're going to zoom in here. One sec. Yeah. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to tape down Fred head. Make sure it's on camera. Okay, I'm going to get my tape here. And for the purpose of this one, I'm just doing him. I'm not doing something more complicated, which you can actually do like a head tilted and turned. But to make it a bit simpler, I'm just going to keep him, he's like straight up and down. Just going to tape him down temporarily here so he doesn't get away from me. So now, what I want to do is do a three-quarter drawing. View drawing. You know what I'm going to do, people, is I'm just going to tape my paper down here so it doesn't wobble in the frame. So just bear with me. Okay. Now I'm going to tape down Mr. Top View Fred. And of course, if I just left this, you see how the top view is just vertical? If I just projected that, then I'm just going to get this again. Because it's the same thing. It's just we're looking here on the top, here front, and here, you know, it's turning sideways. So I don't want that because that would be pointless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show what happens if we turn. And you can make it any angle you want, but I'm going to make it about 45 degrees here. And I'm going to move it over here so it's clear of this. But close enough. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Let's just tape it down temporarily. So my center line is here. And what I'm going to basically do here is use information and project it together. And we're going to do it point by point, really is the way you're thinking about it. So you're going to find the intersection of the different points, like this point here where his hairline, which I can't see, but it would be somewhere right there. And the tip of his nose, for example, the chin, the mouth, whatever. If you get enough of these, you can use them to construct a basic rough drawing. It's kind of like an estimation. You'd need a lot more data points to make it really perfect. And that's where you could get into a 3D program. But like I've said in my other videos, the whole point about this is learning to draw yourself out of your head. Don't put the information out in the cloud in computers is my strong advice. Put it in your own head. It's classic old school I hate that word, old school, but that phrase, but it'll work for now. It's classic old school knowledge of drawing. So what you're doing is you're not relying on a computer to give you 3D forms and shapes and then tracing them. You're actually doing it in your own head, or in this case with a simple kind of mechanical construction. So what I'm going to do is make a 3/4 view, and I'm starting to project lines. So this would be the chin. And I'm going to show it like, here we're going to have our stand-in Mozart. So here's Mozart, good old Mozart. He's so useful. You know, when you're drawing and you want to draw a 3/4 view, the problem always is, you know, things like how much of this brow over here is showing an eye? Where does this cheek line go, right? And it depends on the form, because everybody's form is different. Every skull and every face with the flesh on it is going to be different. So it gets into a bunch of subtleties, but the basics are, you know, when do things disappear behind the edge of the head? Now, unfortunately, Mozart, we can't see his ears because he's got his Mozartian wig on, but the same concept applies. Like, if you were drawing this out of your head, you got to know, see the edge of his wig here, fake hair? Where does it disappear behind the line of the cheekbone and brow, right? See how it disappears as it turns around? It's all that kind of knowledge you need in your head when you're drawing. And, you know, you can say all you want, fake it till you make it, but really what helps is when you study this stuff in the way I'm showing here, it'll give you a more solid, solid basis for what you're doing. So that's my sales pitch. I find this fun anyway, but anyway, what I'm doing here is I've temporarily made it on this angle. Like I said earlier, you could do any number of drawings on different angles, but I've chosen to do this. So what it does is it gives you information about, see, for example, the line I've just drawn, if you can see it in the video, is the far terminator of the cheek as it would appear from that angle. So here, for example, I spoke about the nose. Okay, so the nose is on this line, the tip of the nose. And there's this tip of his nose here, so I'm going to mark that. And then I'm going to get in some of the real basic things, like see his eyebrow line here? Okay, so it's going to be somewhere like there, and the width, as it appears from this view, is going to be given to me up here. So he goes from there to there. So I'm going to mark that. It looks like it ends about there. When I did this top view, it was ambiguous because his hair kind of covered the location of where the inner edge of the eyebrow would be. But let's say it's about there. So that'll give me the apparent width of the eyebrow. Now I need the base of the nose to draw that. So it's going to be on about the same line where this little dent is. And I guess it would be about here. So then that gives me the angle of the nose, because I know that the tip is here. It's about there, so it's going to be something like that. Now same for below his nose. I'm trying to do this a little bit quickly so I don't take forever. And now we got his eye. His eye is on this line. And again, I can't see it here, but I'm going to just estimate that part. And then I guess I could work on this brow here. See how it's turning, the brow ridge and eyebrow? So again, I know it's not going to be further than this. It's kind of on that same line. So it would be about that distance. And then what next? Let's get the basics in, Paul. Notes to myself. Do the big things first. Mouth. So I can't see his mouth here, so I can't get information on that. So I'm going to have to estimate that. And then under lip is, I'm getting the thickness from this drawing, just projecting it over. We already knew our chin. I can't see where his chin point is here, but I know it has to be there somewhere. Although, yeah, it's about lined up with, so okay, let's say that would be the chin, point of his chin in this picture would be where that dot is, roughly. So that's on this line and then intersecting. Okay, so that's where the volume of his chin is. Now let's try and locate the jaw angle. So we've got an angle here, and it would be over here. And I can't really see it here because it's kind of covered from the top view, but I'm going to estimate that it's probably around there. Like I said, sometimes you have to estimate. But if the intersection of those, the jaw angle line, see, it gives me this kind of thing. It gives me the rough angle. When it's starting to turn, the angle's going to change. And then let's locate the ear, because that's a major form. Alrighty, so let's do this base of this ear, which would be roughly here. And the height of the ear is similar to the eyebrow and base of the nose. So that gives me my markers. And then for the rest of the ear, you can see that with the kind of ears this guy has, it's the edge of the ear here is lining up as you would, because this is showing your point of view. It's almost making a tangent with the back of his head. So, but that gives me the size of the ear here. I guess he's got a fairly wide-looking ear. And if I wanted to, I'm going to just rough this in, but I could project in all these dimensions too. But I'm just going to eyeball that because it'll save us a bit of time. And I'm just looking at I'm using my grid paper here to help me do my guidelines. See the little corner of this point of his hairline, which is there? So projecting that down, and you're always projecting and intersecting from the two views to find points. That's the method. Presumably that's apparent already, but that's the method I'm using. You're finding points in space. So here, this is the angle break here where the hairline changes. So that would be here. What am I doing? Getting a little bit punch drunk. It's on this line, and then here, so it would be here. I guess it's a bit off. My drawing's a bit off. It's angling a bit. No, it's okay. It's angling over. And then the center, where the peak here would be on this line. And the center here is right there. So projecting that down, it gives me the point of this slight widow's peak this character has. You know, his hair kind of goes up like this. Now what I need is, and I don't know if I can get it from these dimensions, but the width of this brow, let's see, it's about here. So I know that because it's a widow's peak type hair like this guy's got, it kind of dips down in a V a bit. It's going to be going back over like that. And I know that the top of it, the top of the like wave of it's going to be there. And then the outer dimension of the hair is here. So then I know that it has to wrap back around there. So now all I need is to get this line, which again, from this method, sadly, I'm going to have to estimate that, but I'm pretty sure it would be something like this. You're going to have a notch here because of the skull. You're going to have his other eye, the center of his other eye somewhere here. That's a little messed up, but I'm not going to erase it. And then his neck, let's just see. I don't have information on his neck, so I'm just going to estimate that. I can't get information on his neck because you would need like another separate drawing showing the like volume or cylindrical nature of his neck, but I don't have that in this in this drawing because it's not transparent. And I've got his Adam's apple here. And again, I don't have information on where it would be located here, but I know roughly it would be something like that. So, and then the bottom of this. So, oh, we need his nose here. The rest of his nose. I'm not 100% happy with this here, what's happened here, but I'm going to just ink a bit and see if I can make it look a little better. Using this guy here. It's a little better. Well, again, I'm trying not to be too perfectionistic because this is just a explanatory video of the method, which I think you can see works. You can use it then to go in on top. I've made his nose in this drawing a little bit less bulbous than in this one, but anyway, doesn't matter. We'll just have a little fun here inking this in. Because the cool thing about this is that if you have confidence that you've now constructed something that's got solidity in space, you can then go to town a bit, you know, and just relax and have fun, make it more natural. Like, I'm not necessarily proposing that you draw an exact stiff geometric nature, but what's fun about this is you can create what kind of wilder cartoon drawing projected in 3 views, and then extract the other angles, as I've done here. Extract the other angles to turn it. And yeah, like I say, when I glance back and forth, it's pretty close. I mean, I've changed the hair here, but it's pretty close, except this guy's nose is a little bit less prominent. But again, this is all the kind of stuff you can adjust. So, having fun. And let me think of what else I can say. Like, you know, what I could do, and I'll probably do in another video to make it a little tougher. Make it a little tougher on myself is tilt Fred here. I'm trying to not tear Fred. But, you know, if I did a drawing where I had Fred tilted and I projected over, what you would get is the same drawing but looking down, which is kind of cool. And I might even do that in the next video. But this is getting on for 20 minutes, 18 minutes, so I think I'll probably leave it there. And you can easily do this, because I mean, all I did here was got a grid or made a grid, but you can even find free grids on the internet, grid paper or whatever. Just easily make yourself in 20. I made it 20% gray in Photoshop, and then I made another layer and I drew my heads just with a black brush, you know, in Photoshop, and then flattened it and printed it out. And then I just used an X-Acto knife to cut very carefully around Fred here. And anyway, I suggest that. It's quite a lot of fun. And what you do is, or not what you do, what you discover is when you do this, I'm going to zoom back out. What you discover is there's a lot of interesting little details about three-dimensionality. Like here, for example, when I constructed this top view, it was really tricky, and I don't even know how right I got it, but trying to decide what the lines would be here that were consistent to the other drawings. But what you discover is that your conception of how things look, that you would make an easy assumption, it's not always how things look. And if you get used to drawing kind of by cheating, I mean, I don't like all these phrases, but you can get used to just drawing stuff, but never really considering the key volumes and the real volumes of things being consistent to each other. You can get away with a lot of stuff and it can look good, and I guess there's nothing wrong with that really, but I just find it interesting if you get a bit more rigorous like this, at least as an exercise, you start to understand things in three-dimensional space. Here, I'll bring in house housey here. This is one of these David Winter cottages from England, which are really cool. They're collectibles from, I don't even know if they still make them, but you know, it's the same idea, is that this is a solid three-dimensional form. And if you were to draw this very carefully from different angles, it would be consistent to each other. So what you're trying to do is train your own mind to be able to do that and see something as you're drawing it as a consistent volume. And then when you draw it from another angle, recognize if there's discrepancies. And believe it or not, as difficult as that may seem, if you haven't trained that capability in yourself, if you haven't done that, it may seem really difficult, but you quickly get a much better grasp of what things are going to look like from different angles. Here's my other favorite friend, ribcage, balsa wood ribcage. I made this back in the 80s. Why do I refer to time? Well, it was a long time ago. Here's my old model of the ribcage, and this would be the back, side, front, and really, again, you see how the lines change as you turn it. If you learn to think in that way, and think in forms in your head, you can do this. Then you kind of learn to know what they're all going to look like from different angles. You kind of get a sense. And some of it has to do with something I'm going to get into in another video, the next video probably. It's called intersections. I don't know if you can see that. Like here I've got a drawing of what happens when one cylinder runs into another cylinder. What kind of line, I didn't actually finish this drawing, but what kind of line you get. Or here I was drawing, if you have a sort of semicircular form and a semicircular form intersecting, you get this line here. So that's another piece of knowledge that you need to draw forms well. And it's almost kind of like engineering knowledge. And as I said, I'll probably do that in one of the next videos. Each one of these things is a whole kind of, you want to call it a rabbit hole? It's kind of a whole rabbit hole you can get into studying this stuff, just like perspective drawing is, which I also will be doing more than one video on. That's a whole extensive subject. But in the end, all these things are kind of interconnected. Like each piece that you study helps the other pieces. And when you keep going around all of those, eventually you kind of spiral upwards and you accumulate more knowledge and it all makes more sense. So I think with that, I'm going to say goodbye for this video. And thanks for watching. Please like, comment, ask me any questions if you have any. Tell me if something wasn't clear. Tell me if you want to see a video that I haven't done yet. Anything like that, I really welcome feedback, because I started doing this because using still drawings alone, like on Instagram, I have my art principles Instagram, which is linked in the description of this video. That's great, but it doesn't show you things in movement. So that's why I started doing these videos, is to try and do a little bit more interactive. Of course, the most interactive would be to do it with a live audience, which who knows, maybe that'll happen. But anyway, that's why I started doing this. So that's why I would like, if you do have feedback, I'd welcome that. And if anything about this wasn't clear, let me know. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.